Today I'm joined by Jackie Quinn, career estate agent. Jackie, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning. Jackie, why don't you tell everyone who you are, what your experience is, how you found yourself sitting in the seat that you're looking forward to so much?
So I've been an estate agent for a very long time. I've had my own business for over 30 years. I have 3 offices in Surrey dealing with sales and lettings, and I'm also the regional executive for the Propertymark South East area, and that's where I met Ben, and hence I'm here today.
Yeah, so everyone knows Jackie's delighted to be here, really excited to be on the podcast. So actually, why don't you just explain really briefly to the audience, Propertymark Regional Executive, what your role is, what that is for those that might not be familiar?
So my job with Propertymark is to ensure that all the local estate agents are aware of Propertymark and what the benefits are, and to network and engage with them and persuade them to come to all the events and participate.
Network and engage and socialise. My question would be, so what are the benefits to joining Propertymark if I was an estate agent?
So the benefits for Propertymark, it's making the public aware that you are trustworthy, you're part of an organisation that give lots of benefits to agents to help them run their business correctly. And there is, the networking opportunities are great for all the agents.
Okay, so it's like a kite mark for the consumer.
Like a kite mark for the consumer.
Okay.
I was involved, Propertymark used to be National Association of Estate Agents and ALA for lettings, and I was involved with that in the very early days of my career.
Okay.
In fact, I was the youngest and the only female board member of our local group.
Wow,
That was a very long time ago.
Things have changed a little bit?
Things have changed, and it's now a really big organisation and taken very seriously, and does really good things. Good.
Well, look, let's get on to the meat and veg. No more waffle, some serious stuff. So we start every episode with, I said we start every episode, we've just had 30 seconds of starting the episode in a very different way this week. But we start every episode with a question, an important question, to get into the detail around the property sector, not necessarily the property game or the property industry, but the sector, the business we all work in. So my first question is, what's the one truth about the property industry that you think most people, especially the public, still don't understand, and why? And then my follow-up is, why does it matter?
Well, I think one of the main things is the public think that we set the value of their property. They dislike estate agents immensely because we've got a very bad reputation. I think we're lower down the list than dentists, actually. And they have no concept that their house is worth what somebody's going to pay for it, rather than what we as agents say. And obviously there's a lot of things you can do to enhance the value of a property, having it properly staged, properly marketed. But the bottom line is, most people come back and say, you haven't achieved what you said you'd achieve for my property. Okay, so
yeah, this is an interesting one. This is I guess quite a lot of age. So I've been in an agency for 20 years, and you hear this feedback a lot, not necessarily in my own business or probably in your own business, but the agents get the valuation wrong, or they overvalue the property.
Yes.
And the perception is intentional. But really what you're saying is less intentional, and it's more the agent can only give a steer on the price? What would you say?
Well, I think that there are good and bad agents. And I think the good agents do value correctly.
Okay.
It's very tempting to overvalue to get the job. Being honest, it's a very tempting thing to do. If you know 3 other agents have been in, you know, you are tempted to put extra money on it.
And so, just so you know, what that means is, if you're a consumer, if you don't work in the industry, if you own a property and you invite Jackie and I out to value the home, and I'm valuing for my estate agency and Jackie's valuing it for hers, and let's say we're in competition with 2 other estate agents, you're probably going to lean towards giving it to the agent who tells you your home's worth the most. And when we say overvaluing, that's quite common. So in case you're not familiar, unfortunately that does happen, right?
It does happen. It does happen. And when the market's very strong and buoyant, you can actually sometimes achieve those high prices. But currently the market's not great, and you have to be realistic and on the market at the right figure to actually get any interest, let alone a buyer. So what you don't want is to have loads of houses on the market that are too expensive and nobody's ever going to buy them.
And so back to your initial point, is good. So good agents can value, can get the valuation right or in the ballpark, but the consumer's perception around pricing is that we determine the value of the home as opposed to giving what we believe the value to be.
Yes, I think they take our word as read. A lot of people have a number in their head. They actually have maybe looked on Zoopla and seen what the house is worth in their opinion. Somebody maybe valued it a few years ago when the prices were different, and now when we go around in this market and give them a price, that's their phrasing, not mine actually. They always say, give me a price. We can't. We could give an indication as to what they might sell it for and give them advice on how they can maximise that value by doing the presentation, getting the presentation right, getting the marketing right. But generally speaking, the figure that we discuss with them is not necessarily what they're going to get when they go on the market.
And so, is that the issue then? If I guess there's two ways of looking at it, right? So you've got the price that a seller wants to achieve. They've decided, they've gone online, they've found an online valuation tool, they've got a number in their head. There sometimes, quite often, is a disconnect between a seller's price point and maybe a buyer's price point. So how does a good agent marry those two? How do you address that first?
Well, I think it's just being very honest with them and being familiar with the market and what else has been sold in the area, and obviously giving them examples of what prices have been achieved, and also sitting down with them and discussing their next move, because most of the time people are moving from one house to another, and the price is actually relative. If your own property has gone up or down 10%, the one you're buying would have gone up or down 10%. So it's actually about the difference between the two prices rather than the actual number they achieve. So it's sitting down with them and actually explaining to them, that there is this, they need to think about the difference between the two properties.
Okay. And so the second part is, how do we maybe have the consumer take ownership for the price they want to achieve? So, I think any agents watching this will appreciate that when we go to a home and we offer a valuation, the consumer's got a number in their head. The seller has a price, and they're hoping that we're going to confirm that price. And some agents will, incorrectly. And then the outcome is we don't achieve that price, the agent doesn't get the number that the consumer wants, the seller wants, and then the agent is to blame for that. How do we address that?
Well, how I work with that is when I first meet the client, I will go through with them and discuss what I feel is the right price. And then when we're marketing the house, we get everything as perfect as we can. So we get the property dressed correctly so it looks its best. We make sure the marketing is spot on. We make sure the advertising, the social media advertising, the photography, the videography, everything is done right. And as long as all those things are done right, and also, booking the viewings, conducting the viewings, knowing the area, having experienced team members dealing with people that are viewing, and then if still nothing comes of it, we know the only thing that can be wrong is the price.
Okay.
But we have to make sure that we get the other things spot on.
Yeah. Okay. So, the checklist for achieving. So, in your opinion, Jackie, what's the role of an estate agent in our industry from a consumer's perspective? What's our job? What should we be doing?
I think our job is to be very clear as to what the market is doing currently, and understanding their reasons for moving and actually their motivation, and dealing with that, because if somebody wants a quick move, we have to make sure that we have everything in line. If somebody's not fussed about moving really quickly, then maybe they could try a slightly higher price, but it's not in their interest to do so. And I think it's our job to actually explain the outcome of doing all the lead up things to putting the house on the market, to doing that properly, is going to have an effect on the saleability of the property.
And so, so I just want to mention this term that floats around clients generally, and just so everyone knows, if you're a consumer, our client is the person selling the home, not the buyer. A client can be regarded as needy, greedy, or speedy. I don't know if you heard this one.
Yep.
So needy, high intensity, need a lot of looking after. Maybe they're first-time sellers, maybe they're last-time sellers, and need a lot of hand-holding. Fine. Greedy is achieving the best possible price, and everyone wants to achieve the best possible price, but greed often falls into maybe aspirational price point that's very difficult to achieve. And then speedy is someone that needs to get a sale through quickly. So it might be someone who's going through a difficult situation. Maybe it's probate, maybe it's a divorce, maybe something more positive like moving for a job, but something that needs to happen quickly. So clients fall into these three categories, and we find in our businesses that the vast majority fall into that greedy category. They want to try the aspirational price point. Is that your experience?
No, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, I'm based in Surrey, and most people are family. It's a family area.
Okay.
2.2 kids and a Volvo. Mm-hmm. We're 35 minutes on the train from central London, so a lot of, as I say, young families.
Okay.
And they really are looking for a straightforward move at the best price, but not really greedy. Doesn't have to be speedy.
Okay. So it's hand-holding,
it's more
quality
hand-holding,
service,
quality service.
helping with the onwards purchase,
I
maybe.
appreciate that's the area I work in, Surrey, whereas if you're in a more central London area, I'm sure it's more greedy.
Yeah, so you know that we're sitting in Chiswick, which is in West London right now, and the estate agency business I've always been connected to have been in West London. And the London consumer is exactly the stereotype that you have in your head right now that you're imagining. They are quite, I mean, I'm a Londoner, I'm challenging. So yeah, we deal with challenging consumers, but such is life. And you're right, depending on where in the country you are, you're going to experience different cultural norms around purchasing and selling. So let me go back to what you said a moment ago about preparing the property for sale and getting it ready and having, in essence, a checklist. There's you mentioned earlier on that the consumer has this negative mindset around us, or this perception around what we do. Let's start with that. Why do you think we have the negative perception?
I think the reason that some people think about us negatively is that a lot of agents, particularly historically, have are targeted too hard on getting properties onto the market, and particularly a lot of the big corporate agents, the staff are heavily motivated to get houses on the market at any cost. And in my opinion, people should be targeted on completions and getting the deals through, and how many houses you've got on the market is really irrelevant.
Okay, so let me break that down again. For if you're watching this and you're not in the sector, there's lots of targets in a estate agency. We're a target-driven industry of people that work in the sales environment. So the larger corporates, as Jackie mentioned, quite often will target their listers, the people that go out and value homes, to bring instructions onto the market. And they're compensated based on the volume that they bring on. And so there's a disconnect with the incentive, because if they are compensated based on how many they list as opposed to how many they sell, they can be saying anything to the seller to bring them on. Your home is worth 20% more than it actually is. And unfortunately, this does happen. We know it does. And so you think that's the main driver in why the consumer has such a negative perception around us as an industry?
Well, I think also a lot of agents historically, I like to think, haven't always told the truth, and you know that they sometimes will fabricate stories to make vendors accept offers, saying that people are ready to go, that they've sold a property, and it's not always necessarily the truth. And I think it's because in the past we've had a lot of young people coming into the industry who haven't been properly trained, who are not aware of what they should be doing correctly, and because our industry is not regulated currently.
Okay, so we're going to get onto regulation. But those young people coming into the industry are obviously working for someone. The assumption is they're working for someone who's got a business, running a business, you know, if it's an age thing, they're probably a little bit older, but they're certainly more experienced.
Yes.
So why are those people not training these new entrants? Or is it less about training and more about moral standards? Because if it's dishonesty, there's no training that's going to fix that, is there?
No, I think our industry needs to be more about people. Taking it down to base level, it needs to be more about people, helping people to move, helping people with their life. And we end up being counsellors a lot of the time, because a lot of the time people move. I always say the D reasons: death, divorce, downsizing, diapers and debt.
Yeah.
That's a lot of D reasons why people move.
Death, divorce, diapers, downsizing
and debt.
And a diamond and a diploma. They're the seven I heard. Yeah.
Absolutely. And they're all emotional reasons for moving. They're not actual, apart from debt, which really is not.
Well, it can be quite emotional if you're
negative,
in it. Yeah.
Negative emotion.
Yeah.
But I think, and a lot of people come into the industry who think it is a spreadsheet game, and it's just about transactions, and it's not about transactions. It shouldn't be.
But that goes back to maybe the point you made about corporates, because a corporate infrastructure will need to run it in that way to hold their vast number of branches accountable based on structure, based on KPIs, based on metrics. So I guess if the corporates make up a huge chunk of agents' experience in this country, they're training a huge chunk of the next generation of estate agents. So they go on to run a business and they build their independent business as a in this sort of corporate infrastructure setup, and they forget the people side, or maybe they're really probably experienced the people side.
Yeah, and I think we've seen, obviously in the past few years, we've seen a lot of independent agents set up on their own with the likes of EXP, who are doing really, really well because they're people. They're actually out there, they're doing their podcasts and their videos. They're actually people offering a service to the people, for the people. They're not just about the numbers.
Yeah, and so again, EXP is a self-employed brand, if you like. So I think they're the biggest agency on the planet for headcount. And so they offer what's called a brokerage model, where you can, if you're, I don't know level of experience required, but you can work underneath their brokerage and be, I think they use the term personal agent. And so you just deal with the consumer directly, and you don't need an office or as much infrastructure, and it's just you and your clients. And so the data shows that their success rate is higher than your average agent, and certainly higher than a corporate, because in simple terms, people working in that setup have got no basic salary, there's no protections. If they bring a property on, they need to sell it or they're not going to be paid. Yeah. And so they've got a vested interest in getting the client the best result. That being said, I think independent agents do as well, certainly if they're run by the business owner.
I agree. I think, I mean, the problem with the broker type agent, the EXP type self-employed person, is they very soon, if they're good, they will become an independent agent and have to take on staff, and then it's like a rolling stone, and then they have to get an office or a premises for the team to be at, and then it goes back to square one.
Well, yeah, so this is really interesting, because we've stumbled into something that I haven't had a conversation with anyone about yet, but you're exactly right that you're seeing it now, that the EXP model, the brokerage model, has got successful agents and they've built a team underneath them and they have high street offices. Yes. And so they've been campaigning for self-employed agency, and it has come full circle, and now they're set up and they look like independent agents. I assume the only difference is, though, the salespeople that work underneath them are still working in the self-employed capacity.
Self-employed, yeah. It's like a franchise.
Yeah. So that is interesting. So now, while we're on this, let me just catch you completely off guard. What's the future of estate agency? Is it self-employed? Is it high street? Is it independents? Is it corporates? What do you think?
Well, being an independent, I think it's independent.
Okay.
I think being one person on your own is a really difficult gig. It's very difficult to give a good service to a number of people. It's all right when you start and you've only got 5 houses, but once you build the business up, it's impossible to keep doing everything yourself. Yeah. And we're not all good at everything. You know, these guys who are self-employed are great listers, they're great at valuing properties, at taking properties on. They're not actually that good at doing all the admin behind it and making sure it's compliant. They're no good at progressing the sale through successfully. So they've got to get people in the background. Yeah. And if they want to grow beyond a certain amount of properties, they have to get staff in, and then they are going to become independent. So I think you are going to see more independence. I think the corporates are going to struggle because I think they have got so many overheads and so many expenses going out, and I think the public are starting to go off the independents.
Okay.
You know, various television programmes lately. We won't go there, but you know, there's.
Do you mean off the corporates?
Off the corporates.
Yeah.
So the corporates, I think the general public are starting to become aware, because the general public are starting to expect agents to be part of their community. They're expecting to see the little videos on Facebook pages of their agent introducing themselves to all the local businesses. The corporates don't do that because they've only got a team member in the office who might be there for 2 years and then promoted somewhere else. They're not used to seeing the same person in a corporate, whereas the public are now wanting to see the estate agent. We're going back to how it used to be many years ago. The estate agent walking down the high street on a Sunday, walking their dog and their kids in the park. They want to see that personal
this is really
connection.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, the piece on continuity, I think, is huge.
Yeah.
So you could walk up a high street in London, and 6 months later you can do the same walk and not recognise any of the agents. Yeah. Very much a revolving door. I appreciate London is maybe a slightly different setup to most other areas of the country, because there's just so many more employment opportunities in London that if you don't really like it, you just jump ship really quick. But this is really interesting, because if you go back in time, I want to say more than 20 years, because 20 years ago it wasn't your there's that term that you're the digital mayor, or you're the local mayor, you're the face of the town. Yeah. But maybe 30 or 40 years ago, the estate agent was held in high regard, and they knew everybody, and they were a face, and there was maybe less competition, and so that's why
there was.
They were more well known. And so you think we're going to start to revert back to that?
Yeah, I do. I think people want their estate agent to be part of their life. I mean, people generally move every 7 years, and they want to actually deal with the same agent. They want to know that they've got an agent they can talk to if they ever think about investing in buy-to-let property, or their family need to move. People come to you for advice, not just for that one move, but for anything property. And
well, this is really interesting. So I bet, Jackie, I bet people come back to you all the time.
Yeah.
I bet you.
Oh, I get all sorts of random requests every day.
Yeah, I bet. What I was going to say is that the average is that I think only 1 in 7 or 1 in 8 consumers go back to the agent that they transacted with.
Yes.
Because maybe it's experience, poor quality experience, maybe they're being marketed to by other agents, but I bet you've got a great system for making sure people come back to you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think there's nothing worse than going on that automated system where your software sends out a reminder every year saying it's a year since you moved, it's 2 years since you moved, it's your birthday. I mean, nobody wants that. They're not interested. But I think as an agent, you just need to keep yourself in the community and just be part of the community and show an interest. And they'll automatically come back to you. The only thing I would say with that, we're noticing of late, is because people now buy houses in a different way to how they used to buy. They don't register with an agent so much and wait for a house to come up. They just dip in on portals when they're ready to buy, on Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market. They go on, and a lot of agents are saying, right, if you want to buy this house, you need to put your house on the market with me. So if you don't come on with me, I'm going to sell it to someone else.
Yeah, and so this is.
Which is another
this
issue.
is a whole other can of worms that we can get to. But we may be, Jackie's doing 3 episodes, so actually I think we should talk about that in the next episode.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, it's not necessarily manipulating the situation, but how agents operate when they want to maybe win your listing, or if you want to buy a property. And as you mentioned earlier on, there was a TV show on recently about certain practices that don't necessarily serve the consumer very well. I want to go back. I said, I bet you've got a system and you said you don't use the automated systems for being in contact with people. Rather, you just do good work, is my interpretation. As in, you're a member of the community. You're regular. You're present, if you like.
Yes.
But I bet the other thing you do really well, which you didn't say, and maybe that's a little bit of humility on your part, is you just do a good job.
Yes.
Or your team does a good job.
Yes, we do a good job. We make sure everyone's happy. And like you said earlier, people are moving for different reasons. And what makes people happy is different with every client. And you need to find that point of where they're going to be happy. Do they want it quick? Do they want the most money? And you need to just change the way you behave and you act to make sure that they're satisfied with the service. And if they're happy, chances are they'll come back to you.
Exactly that, yeah. And that's really what my thought process is, having known you a little while, is that I bet you do a great job and people come back to you. You're a pillar of the community. You've been there for more than 30 years now, but you're present. I don't know if there's a little snigger there.
Yeah, we stopped at 30 years. That's it. I'm not saying any longer than that.
Okay, just 30 years. But that I guess, so I've just been on holiday. Let me give you an example. And the service at the hotel we're at was absolutely awful. We go to the same area most years, and this hotel was, we'd never been there before, but lots and lots of really good reviews. And actually the service was really bad, especially sort of food and beverage side, which plays such a big part in the holiday breakfast, lunch, dinner. Don't normally have 3 meals, certainly do when you're on holiday. And it just wasn't great. And so we will never ever go back there. And when I looked into it in a bit more detail, all these wonderful reviews were absolutely fake. They're clearly a bot, with crazy names like SJ12347.
Yeah,
no one's
people.
yeah. So all these ridiculous names, but they've managed to hook me in, and we booked through TUI, which is a major provider, and they've got all these great reviews on TUI. With you, on the other hand, the polar opposite is do a great job, provide great service, care about what they're doing. There's just no reason for people not to go back to you. And this is where I think there's a disconnect. Agents don't have a good reputation, but actually I know as many agents that do great work like you as those that don't.
Absolutely. And there are lots of really, really good agents out there. I think we don't sing our praises often enough. We need to tell the world that we're good. And that's always slated in the industry. If you do share on social media that you've got yet another 5-star Google review, you'll be slated by all the other agents. But the public need to know that you do a good job.
Yeah, they do.
They just need to be told, we're good people, we do help the community.
Well, yeah, I think the best agents I know are, interestingly, I completely guess, but let's just say half and half. Half are traditional, sort of slightly extroverted, happy to be out there, happy to be talking, happy to be on camera. The other half are slightly introverted, and so they're not necessarily at every event talking to everyone, but they care deeply about what they do and the results they get and how they help people. And we've got this reputation as an industry for dishonesty, which you mentioned earlier on, and maybe being too much about the numbers and convincing people to do things for the wrong reason. And I remember reading this once that if you have a negative experience, you're likely to tell 10 people.
Yeah.
If you have a positive, you might tell nobody. You probably will tell someone, but it's got to be absolutely blow your mind to really shout about it. And so I think you're absolutely right that we need to be more communicative about all the good stuff we do.
We do.
And it's not just supporting local charities, community events like that. It's actually talking about some of the really great work that happens in a estate agency, where regarded as a bit of a commodity.
Yes.
Which is just wild to me, because a commodity assumes that there's no value in the individual. We all do the exact same thing. But just in a 30-minute chat, we've talked about the differing...
We don't. I think, good agents are worth every penny. And I think more and more the public are quite happy to pay for a good service, but they just need to understand what a good service looks like. And I think that's where... I think they're very reticent. They've heard that all agents are bad, and actually they're quite cynical when they start working with you. And it takes a while to actually get them convinced and to back you up and trust you.
Yeah, I think cynical is such a good choice of word. The average British consumer is quite cynical anyway. We're quite good at that. But when it comes to estate agency, absolutely 100% trust. unfortunately, we don't start from a point of they trust us. Trust is to be lost. It's trust is to be earned, and we have to work really hard to earn their trust, and that makes it very, very hard to get into the positive frame of mind and start things in the right way.
Well, I had an interesting experience yesterday. I had a lady phone me from Australia. She had a very elderly father, lived in my area. He was in his mid-90s, and basically wanted a valuation on the property, which I went round there. Lovely old gentleman, absolutely charming, sharp as a knife. He was a retired accountant, and had a lovely chat with him. Beautiful house, been there for 40 years. And I had a lovely chat with him about the house, and then I went back to the office. He doesn't have email or mobile phone, so I then emailed his daughter, as he'd asked me to. That was fine. She phoned me yesterday and said, right, I'm coming on the market with you. We had one of the international agents round who basically refused to speak to my father, wouldn't let him show them around the house, said they wanted to go on their own. And then when he said, what do you think it's worth? They said, we're not telling you, we're going to ring your daughter in Australia. And they point blank refused to speak to him. And she basically put the phone down on them and said, I'm sorry, but if you treat my father like that, I'd never give you my business. And that was a very well-known international agent.
And that is absolutely typical of what the consumer experience is.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd spent 2 hours with him having a lovely chat and a cup of tea. We'll get his business, we'll get his neighbour's business, we'll get his friend's business. And
it's the polar opposite. Yeah, you got.
And that wasn't the reason that I did that and spent the time with him. It was lovely to spend time with such an interesting character, and the plus side of it is we get the business.
Yeah, and that goes back to the point you made earlier on, that it's a people business. And so if you're not really a people person, this is probably not the game for you.
Do something else. It's not the game for you. You have to be a people person.
Okay. Well, look, what a nice note to finish on, being a people person. Jackie's done her first podcast episode, smashed it out of the park. We'll be back next week with Jackie episode 2. We'll see you then. Cheers for watching.